Your mic. No, click it on.
How do I do it?
The button right here. Hold that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you go.
All right, good.
Yeah. Are there any boogies? Wait, we're really filming? Wait.
It's happening.
I was picking my nose. No, let's just start this over.
No, I just started it.
When?
The point was...
Oh, okay. Can we start over? No, I'm confused.
Oh, it's Heron. Fuck. When's that perch coming in?
Harry?
Heron Heath, the DR kid.
Oh, where is that? When is that clutch coming in? All right, now we're ready. Hey everyone, Sarah at Nova again, and here this week with Bailey. And we are having a follow-up to last week's video where we had a EX500, Kawasaki EX500 race bike that had some catastrophic failure. And at that point, we did not have the motor apart, and we had assumed, well, we knew we had some top-end noise happening. We knew we had a loss of power. We knew there was some catastrophic engine damage. It wasn't quite as, I did not think it was as bad as it is. So our initial diagnosis from the outside had been an assumption that the cam chain tensioner had probably failed, causing the timing to slip and the valves to hit the piston, which would have been a relatively simple repair. That's not what happened. Bailey can talk about a little more what we actually found when we got in here. We pulled the head off.
Shit. Oh, no, the spark plugs are right here. So the first thing we do is pull the spark plugs to start with a compression test. This was one side. The left side looks, whatever. This is the right side. That is, that's step number one. You see that that's crushed, so something bad happened.
Something was bouncing around in there.
The compression test read 175 on the left side, 0 on the right side. So at that point, I didn't think it was really worth going through with a leak down test, but since it's not holding anything, we could just assume that it's leaking from everywhere possible. So we proceeded to start pulling everything off to get the head off. And then the first thing we saw, we checked that the cams were still in time, and they were. So, the cam chain tensioner didn't slip. That's the intake. The exhaust cam was what first grabbed my my attention. Actually, that's not even true. That. Can you see that? All the metal in the throat of the intake of the right side. Sorry if it's blurry, but this is all aluminum. So that was the first thing that caught my attention. And then we have this gnarly flat spot on the cam here, on the heel of the cam, and on the lobe. And then this is the follower that was riding on. It is dished like crazy when it's supposed to look something like, that's still pretty bad, but it's supposed to be somewhat concaved, or no, convexed. This one's concaved, meaning that the cam was grinding into it. So yeah, no good. And then the real surprise happened when we pulled the head off. Go look.
This deliciousness then here.
Hooray. Congratulations, Todd. Your first hold piston.
Yeah, as a reminder, this bike belongs to our cameraman, Todd.
Whoop, whoop.
And he was riding the bike at the time. And funnily enough, we had just been, before this weekend event, we had just been talking about how indestructible these motors were. So
It's my own fault.
Never say never. So our current working theory, now that we ruled out the cam chain tensioner as a problem, and again, we ruled that out because the cams were still in time and the cam tension was spot on. Our current working theory, you'll see that one of these is missing. Obviously, a ton of damage in there. Further talking to Todd about what his previous experiences with the bike had been, we learned that there had been one event previously, there had been a situation where a shift was missed and the engine revved up fairly high, above redline. So our current theory is that when that happened, this one particular valve just kissed the piston enough to bend it. And then the bike kept running.
It was not a missed shift. It was a false neutral.
False neutral.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
okay.
Always the bike's fault.
Actually, I was not shifting. It Fell out.
popped out of gear.
Oh,
Okay, all
Snots
right.
does that.
So that's
That's a
interesting.
thing.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Sorry.
to the
Not a missed shift. It just came out of gear suddenly.
yeah. So that's just the popping out of gear is a sign of the transmission going bad. The dogs on the gears aren't holding together anymore, especially under a load acceleration. They'll want to pop away from each other, and that can lead to an over rev. So that's what we think happened here, is that the valve kissed the piston and bent enough that it couldn't fully close. Now it was they're still developing enough compression that the bike would run and actually make decent power. But as the bike got used, it was basically two things were happening. The valve, which is supposed to say come parallel to the head and close, was like this. So every time it hit, it was actually bending back. And you know, if you take a piece of metal and bend it back and forth enough, eventually it breaks. Metal fatigue takes over. The other thing is that a valve needs to close fully to cool off. And the exhaust valves in particular get extra hot because all that hot burning exhaust is coming through there. And if they don't close and fully seat all the way, the heat will never be dissipated and the valve will overheat. So you have this thing flexing and overheating, and eventually the head just fell off, bounced around, and all this havoc ensued. It's funny that all this could happen in the span. You know, Todd was riding it. He heard the noise, felt the loss of power, immediately pulled over. Did restart the bike to ride around the track to get back to the pits again. But all this damage happened in a relatively short space of time, which is pretty amazing. But makes you realize how fast an engine is actually spinning. If this thing was doing 10,000 RPM when that happened, and it ran for, you know, even 15 seconds, that's 2,500 times that the piston would be banging that valve around. So that's a lot of damage that can happen, and this is what it looks like.
Yeah, the fact that the bike was still running at all is pretty miraculous. It's really
still a testament to these things' indestructibility, that even when they catastrophically explode.
We started it in the shop.
Yeah, we started it a couple times to hear what it sounded like. And so our plan for this is we can go one of two ways. One is to rebuild the motor. There's a lot of metal in there, so it's I'm a little bit hesitant to go and just slap a top end on it. You'd have to do a lot of cleaning out of the bottom end, make sure there's nothing in there. It is, however, it's aluminum. It's not steel. It's all melted piston. Assuming that the valve isn't down there, it could be the pieces of the valve could still be down there. But another option is to get a spare motor and slap it in there. We've reached out to other racers in the USCRA, and we've got several offers of people who have parts of these. So we will take somebody up on it and get some spare parts in here and kind of figure out how to proceed. Yeah, there's not a lot you can do with this other than rebuild it. You know, you could theoretically throw pistons at it and a new head,
But we need at least one.
we need at least one, yeah. And it would run, but you risk having metal A going around, floating through the motor and damaging stuff, and B blocking an oil way and then really damaging stuff again. So you don't want to have those kind of thoughts when you are at 10,000 RPM again, doing 100 something down the straight. You'd like to know everything is mostly clean and doing pretty good in there.
And the fact that you had a weird shifting thing speaks to maybe that the transmission was seeing some age, and it might be time to get in there and see what's going on. So, I mean, but there's always a gamble. You get a used motor or anything, you throw it in, that thing could have great compression and no leak down, but, you know, it could be on its last legs anyway.
The only way to know for sure is to do a full rebuild of whatever you're building. And if you're doing high-level racing, it's absolutely the only way to do it. This bike is currently mostly a track day bike, so it doesn't have, you know, the top tier, the top echelon of performance needed out of it. So we can probably get away with a used motor and just see how it does. And if it doesn't work out, then go to repair stuff. But yeah, if you really want to know for sure, there's only one way, and that's to build it up from the ground up and go through every little piece of it. And that's why racing is expensive. So anyway, stay tuned. At some point, we will have this thing running again, and we'll have some pictures with some video of that. And we'll get some, when we are all done, we'll get footage of Todd riding it at the track again. So anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and any comments you have about this kind of stuff, always appreciated.